Okay, let the record show that we have a quorum, and I'd like to call the meeting back to order. We'll continue our deliberations on the ICTA 1415 financial statements, and our next witness is Mr. Randy Merrin. So if you'll go.
I swear by Almighty God that evidence I shall give to this honorable legislative assembly shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, right. All right.
Hello, Mr. Merrin. Thanks for coming. As you've been informed, we're looking currently at the ICTA 1415 financial statements. We also have access to the 1516, but they're not yet in the public realm because they haven't been laid. So we have some questions to you. What we'd like to ask you about is we want to hear from the provider side, because we've heard extensively from the regulator side, and we'd like to hear some of the provider side. So we'd like to give you the opportunity to, and I know you're one of the newer players in the ICTA market, so I don't want to put you right on the spot, but what time are you going to come in, what time are you going to get on our side, and how are you going to get there?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
Just state your name and your position for the record, please.
Randy Merrin, Managing Director of Hurley's Media and Infinity Broadband Trading as C3. That's a question I wish I could answer, but to be quite honest with you, we have the attached to polls, and that's not I think they're able to do 160 polls a month. We figure it's about 7,000 polls to finish the island, so it's going to be a long time.
You did commit when you got your license to build out. Is there a time frame in your license for when you will complete the build out?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, there was a time frame, I think 3 years, that we are expected to build out this island. That is not, it's not our choice not to build as fast as we can. In fact, we hired 2 crews here to build our fiber as fast as we can, but we've actually limited down to 1. And even that's a struggle to keep those busy at this time now.
Thank you, Mr. Merrin, and also want to echo the chairman's comments of welcoming you here. One of the reasons, just to listening public, why we selected you is that you're one of the very few operators that are also in the TV space, the radio space, and also in the telecom space. So we figured at a minimum it would give us as broad a view as possible. So we don't want anyone to think as if though you were selected, but rather that was the thinking that went into you coming here today, being in so many different spaces. One of the things we had raised earlier was the ICT consultation 2016-2 that was issued, I think, in February, early in Q1 2016. And I was looking at Cayman and Wireless's response. And just to refresh your memory, and also for the listening public, is question C2. Provide your view on whether each of the relevant components of the pricing formula for calculation of the annual attachment fee, including but not limited to net cost of bare pole, space factor, an annual carrying charge or 20-year leverage fixed charge rate. One of the things that jumped out from me was Cable and Wireless or Flow's response in terms of the net cost of beer pole is overstated. Well, the question, the number one concern was net cost of beer pole is overstated, and they wrote, Data Link calculates the net cost of beer pole to be $900, which we believe significantly overstates Data Link's true net cost. Based on information provided to CWC in quarterly invoices from CUC, the net cost of beer pole varies by height of the pole as follows. 35-foot wooden pole equals $199.45. 40-foot wooden pole equals $371.20. And 45-foot wooden pole equals $1,007.91. The majority of CUC poles in the Cayman Islands, with the exception of certain poles in the Georgetown area, are 35 feet in height. Assuming the $900 net cost figure cited by Data Link is based on an average cost of all installed poles or poles utilized by the attachers, it is unclear how Data Link arrived at such a high figure, almost equal to the cost of the subset of CUC's tallest, most expensive pole. Based on a review of the most recent quarterly invoices received from CUC, the average height of installed poles is approximately 39 feet, and the average cost of installed pole is approximately $533. Therefore, we believe that Data Link's calculation overstates the true net cost of beer pole by 69% or $267. Of course, when you're looking at something like that over thousands of poles, it basically adds up. And what we're trying to understand, because the regulator is now of the belief that it is not economically feasible, or so some of the other carriers say, for them to go into the Eastern District as per their license. And now they're looking to create a network and pretty much get the providers to pay for it. Members of this committee are of the view that that's just a cost that's going to be passed on to the consumers anyway, and we're going to be stuck with it. So what we're trying to gather today, from your perspective as an end user or a person who's regulated by the authority or OFREG, is what is it that you believe needs to be done in terms of getting this level of service? Because one of the things you may have missed from the earlier testimony that came out is where it comes on to broadband. We are 190 of 196 countries in terms of being the most expensive. So the question is then, what do you think that either we need to do or the OFREG needs to do to either A, one, get access out in the Eastern District and the other rural areas like West Bay, you know what I mean? That's a little inside thing. And B, what do we need to do to ensure that that cost isn't passed on to the consumers, or rather consumers are getting value for money?
Mr. Chairman, I think I'd take that in two phases. The cost of make ready on the poles are running about $1,000 a pole. We've got to redeem our cost on that. If you look at the average bundled service that we're now providing to consumers in Cayman, it probably is right around $140, $150 average. So as you can see, it's going to take a significant amount of time just to get our money back on the make rate on each pole. So one thing I think you guys need to actually do, or the regulator needs to do, is get a grasp on the cost of make ready, number one. And once that's done, I think you'll find us building as fast as we can if the poles are cleared. Again, we have to go through a significant process to apply and then get permission, and they guys make ready, and all that stuff has to be done before we can then attach the poles. So that's a process within itself. Bottom line is you've got to sit down and look at the cost of make rate on these poles. We estimate that it's going to cost us 3 times as much in make rate as it's going to cost us to hang our fiber to go east or even go into West Bay. So that's one issue. As far as the cost of internet on this island, broadband, what I was described as broadband, we have 2 cables that are landed in Cayman, and both the cables are controlled by Flow, Lime, CWC, or whatever it is now. So until someone either gets to the landing station and can open up and negotiate directly with the other members of the consortium, the cost of IP transit into the Cayman Islands is not gonna come down or significantly. The second factor is they got a cable into the Cayman Islands, one or two other cables into that, then I think you'll see the cost of that go down. I think to look at really the cost of broadband in Cayman, you've got to look at the cost of the transit, or what they call the wet capacity coming into Cayman. And then you've got to look at the cost that is for the local loop, which is from Maya 1 to, our head end, what do you call it, our network access point, or whatever you want to call it, our NOC. We're all located in Georgetown, so that local loop is sometimes just as expensive as the wet capacity coming from Florida.
Good question. Where does the Maya 1 cable come in at?
It lands in, Mr. Chairman, lands in High Rock.
So let me get this straight now. The Maya 1 cable that connects us to the world is in East End. And everyone is running cables to connect in East End. But the people in East End can't get the service.
Well, we first have to get to East End to actually get there. I think we're right now, the farthest anybody has fiber is probably in the Newlands, Savannah area right now, besides Flow.
Yeah, but hold on. Hold on. That's CGFS. That's the other one. No, here's what I'm trying to get to, is that the people in Bordentown and the other part of the Eastern District is basically being told that they can't get access to fiber because it isn't worth going out there, but the fiber is already out there because that's the only way you could basically connect to the Maya 1. So you're bypassing all of those homes and cherry picking along the way, and according to them, it's not feasible. So they're going to leave now the regulators now to do something to make sure that the people in the Eastern District actually get fiber. Something seems a little bit lost there.
Well, Mr. Chairman, you have to, once we get connected to the fiber, we've got to bring that transit all the way back down to town, to our NOC, to our head end, and distribute it back out to you from there. So yes, it sounds crazy, but we can either, that's where our NOCs are.
Right, so the ideal situation for us in the Eastern Districts is to find a provider who will start on that end and just deliver it up there. No worry about the rest of the island, because he can get right there in High Rock. Got the plan.
Good point.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, so in terms of, you said the make ready for the pole is about $1,000, then it's going to be 3 times as much to have your, to actually have the fiber on the pole?
Mr. Chairman, no. The make rate is going to be 3 times the cost of actually installing the fiber on the pole and building the distribution.
So
what make ready is and I understand from early evidence given here that there was some time period when you all, before you can make ready, you all have to reserve the space, and you're paying a monthly fee for that, and then you have to pay $1,000. But so you're paying a monthly fee before it is ready. Can you explain to us what the difference is between the two?
Well, it was a reservation fee, which is part of the ICT consultation or our dispute that we filed. Actually, it was C3 that filed that, and basically we were paying to reserve space on the pole that wasn't made available, and until we've applied for it and make rate is actually done. So it's kind of like building your house and charging for it, charging the rental land and everything else before it's even ready.
When you talk about make ready, that is for CUC to make a space on the actual pole ready for you, whether it means moving their subsidiary lines or their main lines or whatever. And that and then there's some other regulations that govern where that space can be, right?
Mr. Chairman, that's a 36-inch space called a communications corridor on the pole. It starts at 18.6 and goes, I think, to 21.6. Make ready is basically, like you said, clearing either their infrastructure out of that space, whether it's below or above, but you've got to have a safety space between that power of 40 inches. So if they've got weather heads at 15 feet, they've got to move them up to 25 feet. And that's make ready. Put on extra guys or whatever may need to be.
Part of your expense or their expense, or that's what the $1,000 is supposed to cover?
That's our expense. They pass that on to the attaching licensees, either ourselves, C3 or Logic.
So so in a 36-inch space and we have 2 or 3 providers, all of them could hold in that, each one is paying $1,000, or is it $1,000 for the make-ready space and then there's a separate fee to attach?
There's a separate fee to attach. I think for us, that's about $24 a year for that fee to attach. The make ready is split between whoever applies to attach to that pole. If we're the only ones to attach, then that's our burden. It can be higher than that, by the way. Make ready on poles can be significantly more than that.
I just occurred to me, and this is one of the questions I missed earlier, because I was looking at my February bill from Flow, date the 25th of February. I noticed on the bill I was being charged my landline rental, my Magic Touch call wait and all of that for April, 1st of April to 30th of April. And then I noticed on my March bill up to the 25th of March, I was paying for my May rental. So it is almost as if though I'm paying for something in advance that I don't get. And so the question is this then, and maybe it's not to you, but I guess just to put it in the universe. If a customer then doesn't pay their phone bill, there should actually be a lag before they're cut off, because technically you're paid for your line rental in advance, so it should be at least 2 months. If you're paying 2 months in advance for the service, and they're cutting you off if you don't pay the March bill, but it includes an element of 2 months down the line. I mean, I think something is definitely missing. I know you're telling us that you're paying for reservation fee, when even in this day and age, hotels and rent-a-car agents is not even charging a fee for reservation. You have to pay just to hold the space.
Yes, sir.
It's the reason why I'm asking these things, and to get to the point, is in any competition, there's a term referred to as barrier to entry, where when a person has a dominant position, they have to do certain things to keep other people out. You know what I mean? And one of the things that really bothers me is that when I see that we are ranked number 190 of 196 in terms of broadband costs, that we are the second highest in the Western Hemisphere, and then we look at what our neighbors are paying, it looks as if though someone's asleep at the wheel. Now, what we have said to the regulators, I have said, is that we need to give somebody a public flogging. So the question I'm trying to determine now, is it Flow, is it DataLink/CUC, is it Lime, or is it the regulator? Somebody needs a flogging, because clearly somebody is asleep and the consumers are paying for it. So in your humble opinion, if you don't want to answer, I do think that, who do we need to be flogging to make sure that people are getting value for money?
Well, I would start with the regulator. Simply put, I mean, their job is to regulate this space, and if somebody is creating issues, deal with it. I just don't have a lot of faith in the regulators actually as being as hard as he can on some of these guys, and they're continuing to get away with it. There's a judicial review coming up right now that's it's again dealing with this various disputes that were filed. One of them is the space, the reservation fee, and I just don't think they respect the regulator enough.
Yeah, I remember when liberalization first came in, there was a kind of push to get the telecom companies sharing co-location on the same pole, because the last thing we wanted was a ton load of poles, well, network cell sites all over the island. So the question is this, and one of the things that the regulator had said to the committee was that they're more focused on quality as opposed to price. You know what I mean? And I was a little bit kind of caught off guard in terms of that response. So from your standpoint, I mean, if the price is too much for you to get on the pole, then in essence it's a barrier to entry. What do you think realistic from your own research, barring going out and building a $300 million distribution network? What do you realistically think that the price should be, or you think is reasonable? Because ultimately Data Link, as a public traded company, CUC, also has the responsibility to their shareholders too. And they have also made their initial investment.
Well, you said it. They've already made their investment on that pole. You know, do they have to make more money on that pole again for rental of that pole, or even moving us paying to move their infrastructure that's below the stated height that they should be? You know, the regular height for that should be 25 feet for power. Power shouldn't be anywhere below 25 feet. So if any infrastructure is below that on their own, they should pay that note to move that. We, as attachees, should only be paying to strengthen that pole to whatever they set as a wind load classification on our pole. So if it needs more guys, we should be paying for that. And then, yes, we should be paying for rental, but any infrastructure below 25 feet, that is clearly should be CUC's dime.
The thing about it is, in CUC's license agreement, they have a set return on the base, exact. Yeah, you have the ARCAM, like the base utility, return on base, something, I forgot the exact term, sorry. Mine went a little bit blank. I have the information here, sorry. Yeah, return on rate base for utilities company. So in essence, then CUC is guaranteed X amount. So in a nutshell, and seeing that they actually report their results consolidated, if they're making more money from you guys, it means in essence then that their rate for us should be less, because in essence now they're making more money from their infrastructure and we have already set. So the flip side is, shouldn't we then be seeing a reduction in the rates, because in essence, if it goes above a certain amount, then it actually drops to keep them within a certain margin. So the question is this then, how do we know then that we're not going to be paying twice? Because if they're charging you on that infrastructure and we have a certain amount that they should be making, then isn't there some element of possibly double counting or something? Or this is where the regulator needs to step in?
Mr. Chairman, that is a question for the regulator. I would assume they would, that's part of their remit, is to check that to make sure that they're not double dipping.
We had, Barbara, you want to ask a question?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, through you to the witness. Is attaching your fiber service to the poles currently owned by CUC the only way CUC C3 can roll out service worldwide? Island-wide, I should say.
Mr. Chairman, no, we're actually applied, and we've got a significant amount of infrastructure underground in the flows ducts. In fact, we did most of West Bay Road in a flows duct to save on the make rate of cost of going on the poles, and we've already applied to go all the way to Maya 1 to get on the flow ducts as well. We've started that project. In fact, right before I came in here, we just made a request to Flow to give us access to the Maya 1 landing station for interconnect. If they give that, we are now at Maya 1, and we can start looking for capacity from other members of the consortium, and we can possibly serve East End in that area. Again, we still got to pay for make ready. We still got to get on the poles. That's that's a work in progress.
We were given evidence earlier that the regulator is proposing that they build out this framework that you all need to get from Bordentown to the eastern districts. Have you been approached on that, and are you aware that, and is there any consideration on cost, and or is that something that you could do as one of the providers for the regulator, and then other people would be able to piggyback on you, so to speak? I don't know the right terminology to use.
Mr. Chairman, we support whatever it is to get to East End and the providers in Eastern District as soon as possible. Whether it's a universal service cable, if it's designed right and it provides the consumer in the Eastern End just as good services as the rest of the island, we're here to support it. Whether we build it, we have our own designers and our own crews to do that, to assist. We have met with them on it. Happy to keep that going. Anything we can do to get to the Eastern District.
Just for the listening public and also for my edification. So if you went to Northside through flow ducts, because I think they have they have underground all over the island as far as I know, right? At some point in Northside, you would have to create some kind of a station from which you would distribute along the poles to each house, so to speak, or can you come up from the pipes on each pole?
No, sir, we would not need to build another. We just basically build a distribution system there. We'd have what do you call a cabinet and a switch that we'd feed into either in that area or somewhere east, and we'd service that entire area.
You could avoid the long distances of which you don't have subscribers by putting a cabinet in Old Manby, for instance, and that would service that immediate community.
Yes, sir, but we'd only be able to provide broadband, and we'd have to get connected to My1. And we are looking at that.
Quick question, how would you expect to get to the homes? Would it be direct to the homes, or is it going to be wireless?
We don't have a license for wireless. It would have to be fiber to the home, each home.
No, that's going to be expensive. I mean, Cayman and Wireless tried it with a $30 million investment and got nowhere. I mean, I can say that because of a fact. They basically took fiber to the sidewalk, and copper ended up, they couldn't make it to the homes. So the question is then, as deep as their pockets is, and they couldn't make it to the home, how would you make it to the home?
Mr. Chairman, it cost us probably around $180 to build our network to across each household. It's another cost to actually connect. But the real driving factor is the make ready. The fiber and the distribution is a cost, but that isn't unbearable. It is the cost of make ready.
So
we figure out how to solve that. Everybody can have fiber up there.
hold on, now back up. If it costs $180, and this goes to the point now, it's a one-time cost of $180. Flow already has the network in place. So you mean to tell me that we're being charged $150 a month for 15 megabytes that we can't get? Something like if we get 3 or 4, depends on what time of day it is. So literally for the cost of roughly 1 month and half a week, it would take for them to fix that cost. But in essence, they're contented to charge us $99 to $150 for whatever the basic plan is for broadband. And it costs $180 to go to the homes, and they're not willing to make that investment, at least to give the people value for money.
Mr. Chairman, I can't speak on Flow's business plan, but I can tell you that I don't think they have the infrastructure to deliver fiber to the home in Eastern Districts. They do have fiber there, but it's not designed to be a GPON network. So I think they're still using a copper delivery, and that has limitations to give you that kind of capacity. Depends on how far you are from the DC.
We have been made to understand that one of the costs that's actually driving it up is the fact that, going back to the Maya one, is that basically we need to get another subsea cable to the Cayman Islands. Now, I can't help passing on Walker's Road every morning and see a ton of satellite dishes on your side. So the question is it a situation where we can go back to satellite to get fiber speeds, or is it a situation where we definitely be getting the subsea, because the cost on the subseas are, a subsea cable is actually quite up there?
The cost of the subsea, once the providers get to Maya 1, I think you'll see that come down, because there is capacity at Maya 1. It's just not all owned by Flow at that time, but they control the landing station. So when we apply for capacity from Flow or from whomever, we have to still include the local loop, which has to come from Flow for that local loop, which is bringing it from Maya 1 to our head end. We get to that point, we can negotiate with 17 other providers that are there. The price of capacity will drop.
Good. So then the next question is then, what does the regulator need to do to either Flow or our Flow or Data Link / CUC do to basically get us to this point? Because I think the public can agree that being ranked 190 out of 196 ain't working. I think the public can agree that we're not getting the speeds that we're paying for. Because clearly fiber is the way to go, and we're still running copper, but we have all of these devices that are built for a much more modern network. So we're not even getting the maximum that we're supposed to be getting under these devices. You try to drive and have a WhatsApp call, it's going to drop somewhere along the line. So the question is then, what does the regulator need to do to either get Flow, what do you suggest or recommend that the regulator do to get Flow and or Data Link / CUC to the table so we can start getting something better for the consumer, because we can't leave it as is. And we can't afford to have a situation where they're trying to encourage competition, but there are too many barriers to competition. And it bothers me when I see a company such as yourself trying to offer first world type infrastructure, first world services, and we're still trying to get stuff done with copper. So what would your suggestion / recommendation be in order for us to move past this and get better value for money?
Mr. Chairman, getting on the poles is probably the easiest thing to get that resolved. The cost of make ready, I keep repeating that, but that has to be an issue that has to be resolved. And then the making the poles ready in a speedy, expediting that in some manner. Before, we pay in advance of going on for the make ready. They give us a bill, or we pay them under an MOU. We have to pay them an amount that they hold in kind of like an escrow, and they apply it to whatever that pole is, make ready cost on that pole. They true it up at the end of the quarter and say, hey, you attached 1,000 poles and it was more than $1,000, so you owe us another $200 a pole or whatever that number will be. But they're always on the good side of that. They have the money in advance. So, that's a good position to be in. Until that is resolved, we can build our infrastructure a lot faster on the poles, a lot speedier, and then going on the ground. On the ground, we're at the mercy of going into Flow's ducts, and are they available? Doing surveys for those, they're not cheap. We just got a quote for a survey for less than a mile, was over $3,500. So stuff like that, they've got to come to grips with these guys. The regulator needs to be involved with that. They need to know, handle the application process. We submit to them and say, hey, this is where we want a survey done or whatever else it is. And the Flow provide the feedback back on them, the cost of the survey, and how much it's going to cost to rent that space and that duct. You know, this stuff is all fully depreciated off their books, or should be now. That's been in there for only, you know, I don't know how long, but far greater than 20 years, I would imagine. You know, so when you sit down there and look at the cost that you're charging us for that, that's a significant cost to the rental of going in those things. So,
one of the questions that we had asked the regulator, and going back to the point that you just raised in terms of items being fully depreciated, is that what incentive then is there for these guys to continue pushing for innovation if they have these old assets sitting on their book, it's already depreciated, it's already paid for, and they're just basically printing money as is? Because when we look at what the royalties were based on ICTA, it's easy to estimate that the total revenues in this business is anywhere from $200 to maybe $400 million, depends on the margin. So with that said, and you're having these same old stuff that's been there for several years back now, that's pretty much paid for, then how do we then encourage innovation? Because here it is that you're trying to push something new, but these guys is charging for old equipment that's already been paid for. I mean, part of even CUC's distribution network have been paid for by us after Hurricane Ivan. I'd probably say anywhere from 10 to 15% based on what their financial statement said.
I don't have an answer for that. It's just the regulators, again, got to just grow some teeth and buckle down and get it done. You know, they're there to encourage competition, and that should be first and foremost in anything they do. Get competition to the eastern districts, to West Bay, to everywhere, and your issues with speed will go away, because at the end of the day, you know, when we launch, everybody had contracts, and C3 pushed it, no contracts. You know, try us, like us, keep us. Now everybody, all the competitors in the market have moved to that. Basically, is the contracts have disappeared. So get us there. You know, the regulators just got to get.
Out of curiosity, sorry, for the areas that you're offering fiber, like full fiber, what is your monthly rate like?
15 megs, I think, is $69. 25 megs is $89. 50 megs, $129. We just launched 500 megs for $299.
Well, seeing that I'm paying about $150 a thereabouts. Matter of fact, no, I got my bill here, I can tell you that.
You need to switch.
But you're not in my area. Hold on. Sorry, hold on there. I want to see. No, it's not about solicitation. Okay, I'm paying $129 a month for 15 megs, which I don't get. And you're paying $69 for, you're charging $69 for 15 megs, which fiber you're basically going to get. So it's in my best interest and my constituent best interest and the people in the other rural districts, including West Bay, to get this done, because at the end of the day, living in this information age, I had one constituent 2 nights ago told me as soon as 7 o'clock comes around, things just drop. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So this is why this is actually important to us, to get value for money. Because I can't keep paying this, and based on what you're telling me, it's going to take you 4.5, 5 years at a rate of 160 poles a month before you basically get the whole island covered. And then I really feel bad for the people in the BRAC, because I don't know what happened to them over there. You know?
We've done a survey to go to Cayman BRAC, and we've actually been trying to work with Cayman BRAC Power and Light. That's been a trial. So that's there.
Mr. Chairman, through you to the licensee, for you to do make-ready costs, wouldn't it be more, this cost would be less significant if you actually provided your own poles? Is that something that you thought about, as opposed to going and sharing with Flow?
Mr. Chairman, we have a license to provide our own poles. We've applied in a few areas with the ICTA, OFREG, and NRA to go in those areas. We've gotten nowhere with it. I'm not a proponent of having 2-pole infrastructure there. It's not going to look good on this island. It's space on these poles, but if that's what it has to take, you know, it's an option.
This brings me then to the next question. I'm glad a colleague from Georgetown South raised it. The importance of controlling distribution. Because when you look at CUC, for example, there's a difference between generating the power and then distributing the power. Anyone can generate, anyone can come in tomorrow and say, we can generate power for cheaper. But if you can't distribute it, then it really means nothing. So then the question is, in this is, from a futuristic island standpoint in terms of what's in the best interest long term for the people of the Cayman Islands, is this something, I mean, the offering was basically saying that they were looking to put something in place to go to the Eastern District. And my question is, why not roll out something across the entire island? For the simple fact that distribution is one of the things that we need to be concerned with, because if not, we're going to be held to the mercy. Even if someone comes in tomorrow and can generate power far cheaper without a network to distribute it, we're stuck. So then the question is, from a future-looking standpoint, is it better for us to start looking at investing in a distribution network? And especially, I mean, why not even go underground? Because we are in a hurricane belt. I mean, and it bothers me every time I see these new developments or these new subdivisions coming up where they're basically putting poles inside them as opposed to running underground utilities from now. Because you're just setting up something to be blown down on somebody else later on. So the question is, I mean, is this where now we have the national conversation, where we have the adult conversation to say, this is something that we need to look at for the future of our own country in terms of distribution going forward?
Mr. Chairman, that's an option. I think CUC was granted the space on the side of the road by cabinet. So, you know, for that infrastructure would have to be granted the space on the other side of the road, and they would then have to attach to our poles or whoever builds this infrastructure, this community poles or whatever, to go to the other side of the road. That may be a good option to consider if the country wants to look at having a two-pole infrastructure and have more than one provider for power on the national grid.
Not a matter of not something you really want to go to, but at the end of the day, in this day and age, you can't have any country being held hostage by any one company in terms of from a distribution standpoint. I mean, here it is now, that 129 versus 69, what's the difference of that? $60 a month, $720 a year extra that I'm actually paying. You know what I mean? For service I'm not getting. Then other people on the road is paying almost literally half of what I'm paying, and they're getting far better service. I mean, at some point, no.
I'm sure by the end of the time I leave out of here, they'll change their prices to match. So,
but it don't matter because they still can't deliver the proper speed on an old copper infrastructure. When what we're designed for now is a more modern type infrastructure, like a Google and all of those guys are laying out. As the regulator said, when they laid the Maya 1 cable, they wasn't looking at what it is that we'll be having today when they laid it 25 years ago or whenever. It was made to carry voice. Now we're looking for something different.
yeah.
The other alternative that is being proposed from some quarters is that the government should take over the CUC distribution network or buy it, and then they can do the regulation and charge the rates themselves. The questions?
Yeah, just one last question. Oh, sorry, Bernie. Go. Just one last question. Ideally, one of the things, Mr. Marin, I've always admired about you is you've always think big, you've always look forward. Ideally, what would you say or what would you like to see in the next 5 to 10 years in terms of where the country should be in terms of a telecoms infrastructure, in terms of that information infrastructure? Because this is one of the things that kids and everyone need literally right now for school and everything else. This is not just about entertainment. This is about having access to the world and making the world smaller within a reasonable cost. What is your ultimate vision, or what would you like, or what do you think the vision should be in terms of moving us to the next level?
I would like to see this island, everybody connected by fiber with broadband. And to me, broadband should be, in 5 years, 1 gig to every house. That's where I think we should go. We should aim to go, and it should be covered with a meshed Wi-Fi network or whatever is the technology that people stay basically connected all the time with their phones, whether it's whether it's Wi-Fi. When they walk into your home, it just automatically passes you off to your other Wi-Fi network. But broadband should be 1 gig is what we should thrive for. We're looked at as a jewel of the Caribbean. We need to be leading, not following. So government should actually embrace this with some sort of broadband policy. And it should do what it needs to do to assist the providers with making sure that infrastructure is in place, whether it's contributing or doing a universal service or something that we pay over time. But it needs to move forward. I see them talking about doing different things in this island, but I think the broadband is we need to get connected. We need to be a jewel of the Caribbean. We need to lead and not be following. So get more fiber in here, get it done.
Mr. Chairman, through you to the witness, are you aware that some strata, condo stratas, are actually cutting deals to sort of cut your service out? C3?
They can, according to the ICTA law, there's no such thing as an exclusive deal with a strata. They can have a preferred vendor, and they can do that, but if there's someone in there that wants our service or another provider's service, they're supposed to be getting access to that. We've run into that on a few occasions that, the strata management didn't want us in here, and we had to enlighten them in that law and the regulations. But if they're actually doing something like that, it's I don't think they're aware of the law.
Mr. Chairman, through you, does your license require you to build out?
Mr. Chair, yes, sir. Entire island and Cayman Brac and Little Cayman.
Okay. So that's your obligation.
Yes, sir.
It's the same to the other carriers as well?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Including data link.
Any other questions?
Are you building out?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
If there are no other questions, thank you very much, Mr. Merrill, for coming.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Got your get out of jail free card. Anyway, I just want to, can we finish for the day, so we'll adjourn now until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, when we'll get back on to the report of government's use of consultants and temporary staff. And we have Mr. Strand Borden at 10 o'clock, Mr. Dax Bastillo at 11:30, and Ms. Gloria McFeel at 1:30. Thank you all very much. Have a good evening.